The Olszynski Law Firm is an official sponsor of Top Bin 90, specializing in personal injury, criminal defense, DWI, family law, and workers' compensation. The Olszynski Law Firm provides professional, trusted legal services to clients facing a variety of challenges. With a team of experienced attorneys dedicated to protecting your rights, the Olszynski Law Firm is the legal support you can count on.
Hi, I'm Justin Olszynski, the founding partner of the Olszynski Law Firm. Me and my wife started this firm back in 2010 with the sole purpose of providing excellent service to our clients, giving our clients a personal touch because we had worked in bigger firms where we saw that not happening. We handle criminal defense matters, civil personal injury, wrongful death, workers' comp, and family law matters. We have a team of attorneys that care about the outcome of your case, and we will fight to make sure that you get the justice you deserve.
Hello and welcome to episode 55 of the Top Bin 90 podcast. We're here after a phenomenal, spectacular Charlotte FC win. 6 goals at the bank, never seen before, but they are always welcomed. We'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about the attendance. We'll be talking about international break. We'll be talking a little bit about everything today. And for that, I have my co-host here with me, Mr. Brian Bam Maurer Media. How are you today?
Doing good, man. Historic win. Time to have a historic pod.
Nice.
Let's go.
We also have Mr. Justin Olszynski on the podcast today. How are you feeling?
Feeling great.
Nice. Good. I like that color. It's a nice color.
Well, it's Indiana.
Okay.
It's national champions. Don't confuse yourself with Liverpool. Yeah. I wouldn't wear that tank.
Dang.
They're falling out of Europa.
Yeah. God, he knew where I was coming with that joke. Dang. All right. You can't surprise Justin, but you can surprise Charlotte FC fans because after a game against Inter Miami, which they played the C squad, and so half those kids had to go to school the next game. They drew 0-0 against the New York Red Bulls, who Brian said were easy contenders for MLS Cup winners. They actually destroyed them. And so, it was one of those games where I wanted to see Charlotte kind of be on the front foot and, actually showcase that, the team is finally getting some form. And I feel like we saw a little bit of that, Brian.
Yeah, I don't know if I said contention for MLS Cup. I think contention for piquing my interest because they had such good, young, talented players that I needed to see Charlotte not let them run things in their house. And I think that was one of the key moments was like, can they not let that happen again? Like they did for Morales with Miami. I think he really, in his debut, against them for Miami, kind of had his way a little bit with that midfield.
Yep.
Just being able to control it. Shouldn't do that in your debut.
Yep.
In this situation, Charlotte was able to get on the front foot and take advantage of it.
Absolutely. Justin, a Diani start. 6 goals for Charlotte FC. A correlation, could we see?
I think that's directly attributed to him. I think that's the only conclusion we could jump to.
Awesome. No, I want to start off, first of all, with those 2 changes. Obviously, Diani came in. One of the things, and we talked about it earlier, was we'll see a little bit of rotation in that midfield. Obviously, we saw Brandt a couple starts, now Diani, and we also saw Kerwin Vargas come in for Liel Abada. And you know what? Kerwin came and Kerwin scored. One of the things Dean Smith said was that, Kerwin Vargas has a really good record against New York Red Bulls. And I'm like, yeah, I remember that even going back to when they first made the play-in game, when we lost 5-2 in New York, I remember he was one of the goal scorers as well. So he's got something with New York. And so I'll start off with you, Justin. Kerwin Vargas gets back in the lineup in the goal and has a pretty good game.
I think I've stated this to you I've been a Vargas fan since the beginning.
Yeah.
Not understanding why he wasn't getting more playing time when he first was on the roster in terms of his creativity. I think Dean Smith is seeing it when he's starting and he's playing those meaningful minutes. It's a better team overall. We just function better, and he's a better finisher than Abada. I think he's a better defender than Abada. He's better at service than Abada. So I think we're seeing a trend where I think Dean is starting to realize that we're going to probably have to get rid of one of those wingers.
Yeah,
and it's not
and
going to be.
someone said that they like seeing Abada off the bench. I saw a comment about that. And then I saw another comment that said, I like seeing them both off the bench. So it seems like they're good, players that can come in and do a job. Obviously, I think for me, I would be continuing to start Kerwin Vargas. He just offers a little bit more, especially on that defensive side.
Yeah, and I think that's where, I think Vargas can do a job and eat minutes. It's kind of similar in some ways to how Bronico can. Like, he can do a job for 60, 70 minutes and definitely eat minutes in a variety of different ways, whether it's helping out with defensive structure, helping getting forward, a bit of both. I will say, like, Vargas's goal was pretty fortunate. Valencia had just come out there.
Yeah.
Literally his first touch of the game at left back. If that play had gotten reversed, people would be screaming, Schnegg in, Toffolo out. Like,
right.
If that was the touch that had happened on the reverse side of the field. So pretty fortunate to get the goal that he had, but I think Vargas did also have a solid performance overall, and you have to be in the moment to be able to
absolutely.
take
And I think that's part of it too. Like, you got to take your chances when you get them, right?
Yep.
And so that was good.
So that wasn't the only one. He had multiple other opportunities that he did well.
For sure. And even Abada's minutes that he played, he had a good amount of opportunities, even a goal that was offsides as well. And so talk to me about the Diani change as well. What did you see there?
Well, I think going forward, we still, I saw a lot of comments, people liking the enthusiasm he had when he was getting forward. I feel like a lot of the attacks sputtered out when he was on the end of them. Whether it was a bad look, I remember there was one in the first half where he was pretty much threw in on goal and it went well wide.
Yeah,
and a couple other moments. That cross on the goal was it was too Valencia should have. He got twisted up. There wasn't a lot of room to work with there, but you have to put the cross in at that moment. But Valencia should have done better with it on the goal, and I just feel like overall going forward, it reminded me of when Tom Bogert's analysis of the team during the NYCFC series in the playoffs, where they talked about a lot of their attacks fizzling out because Bronico was on and Diani were on the end of them. That's kind of what it felt like from him going forward in this one. A lot of the attacks for me kind of fizzled. Defensively, I think he was good. I think he was adequate. I think we have a rotation in that midfield between Diani, Bronico, De La Torre. I think Smith likes a variety of all three of those guys and is willing to put them in different spots depending on different situations.
Absolutely.
I think that's solid.
Yeah. Justin, one of the things that Dean, I'm not sure if he's hired him yet or they're almost done, but bringing in a set piece coach. We saw a set piece goal. Pep Biel assisted Toklomati and then his phenomenal free kick, and so talk to me about the importance of Toklomati, again, getting on the score sheet. One goal so far this season, now he gets a second one, that's got to add to that because I think internally he feels some pressure having the 9, and he should. He's the number 9 at Charlotte FC now.
Yeah, I think anytime a striker, number 9, can, obviously they got to score goals.
Yeah.
I don't care where you're playing at, you wear the number 9, you're going to feel some pressure. And I think he's got the skill set and the finishing ability both on the ground and in the air where he could be a top scorer in this league. And I think, me just jumping to the conclusion that Dean's probably kind of indicated that to him.
Yeah.
I think there is pressure. He knows, he can be really good at this level in the MLS, and he can be one of the top performers. And that's why they've put so much faith in him. And it's, we don't want him to get in his own head where you start to see something like a Privet or maybe another player who maybe starts getting in their own head and making mistakes. When he's scoring goals, you're not thinking.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to play.
Absolutely, absolutely. Brian, I wanted you to touch specifically on Ashley Westwood.
Yeah.
This is probably vintage Ashley Westwood. I was watching him, especially in that first half, winning balls, creating opportunities. I think there was a one-touch pass he had to Zaha too in that first half that I was like, this is a phenomenal Westwood. And then I purposely asked Dean about it post-match, and, he was in agreement. He's like, that's my player of the match, And so talk to me about, how we talked a lot about this last year, how a phenomenal Westwood raises the level of Charlotte FC.
Yeah, essentially what I feel like happens with him is if he's at the level we saw, especially during that stretch, and I always go back to this stretch, it's when 2024, when they go on the road against FC Cincinnati and Columbus, and they get results in both spots, and I feel like Westwood was at his best then. And what he does is his ability to get forward the way he does and crash into the box or be around the top of the box and get chances, those kind of things, but also be able to make the runs defensively and get back is essentially having like a 12th guy out there almost at times. It feels like you just have an extra number on both sides of the ball. And I feel like that's when Charlotte their ceiling is at its highest with him in that kind of position and being able to do those things. I think the one play that highlights Westwood was when he helped win the ball back in the first half. I think you pointed this out as well. He, I think, feeds Tokomati on the right, but then also makes the hard run in. He doesn't end up getting the ball, but he makes the hard run into the space in the box and becomes the most advanced attacking player in that moment. So those are the moments where it's like, now you have an extra number going forward, and then also if he's staying fit enough, can also keep making that run in behind, I think, or defensively and get back and help, just help the defensive pressure, or help the pressure against their back line. So for me, if he can do that in the key moments, so here's a good stretch of games coming up, right? New York City, Nashville away, the ceiling games, the games that maybe decide this season. Can he show up in those moments or down the stretch? Also September, October, November. I feel like those were moments where last year didn't feel like we saw the best of Westwood. And those are kind of the moments where if you want to hit your ceiling, that's the spot to do it in.
Absolutely. Just having Justin, your captain, a player that's going to be a legend at Charlotte FC, kind of play his heart out. What do you think that does for the team in general?
Well, I think every time any team sport, when you see your leader put that kind of effort in, especially at his, I don't want to say advanced age, he's got a few years younger than I am, but putting that kind of effort in, especially getting back and going forward and running the field. It's an inspiration, whether you're actually mentally thinking that it's an inspiration or you're just like, hey, he's doing this, I need to be doing this. And you lead by example, and that's, what he's been doing. He needs to continue it, obviously. And I think, just when Brian was talking, I think the international break actually might help us this year because he did slow down at the end of last year. Maybe having this international break, a reprieve, might help him so he can finish strong.
World Cup break too after May.
International World Cup break. We've got some time to, that might play in our favor with Westwood this year.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I didn't think about it that way, but I think you're right. Obviously, also, I want to talk about Wilfred Zaha as well. He opened up his account. And so that's also a positive, right? I mean, obviously Pep Biel scored, right? And so this is like RDPs from 5 matches. I'm seeing decent returns, right? Pep Biel 4 goals and I believe 1 assist. Zaha 2 assists and a goal. Even Nabata, who hasn't to my standards been great, at least has 2 assists. And so just talk to me about Wilfred Zaha. Brian, and it was good to see just the quality. That was a quality Zaha goal.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you pay millions of dollars and have a guy of his quality on your roster and why he's a star man, being like kind of on the billboard of this team, especially when it comes to the national media and in MLS Season Pass and all those different places. And that it's those kind of vintage moments where he can take on a guy, find a little bit of space, and just hit a far post curler like that. I mean, I think that's why you bring him in. Now, the key is doing it in a moment when you're not up 3-0 was what it was at the time, right? I think there's moments, again, down the stretch. I think that's for all these guys, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like down the stretch when it's 1-1 tight, late October, game 1, game 2 in the playoffs. Can vintage Zaha come out in those moments? And I think that's really going to be the key of this season.
Yeah. You get...
Contract first.
Yeah. You get a little bit of everything with Zaha, don't you, Justin? You get the... little explosive pressures, but you also get some great moments as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're paying for is great moments. I mean, the great moments carry the day.
Yeah.
It's not the temper tantrums on the field. It is the goal scoring and his ability to make wow plays and change the entire complexion of a game. And that's what you're paying the DP money for. That's what you expect from a DP player is to change the complexion of a game. And, we've seen that out of Biel and Zaha. Now it's just the one missing DP that we have to acquire.
He had an assist and a goal called offside. So I don't want to go too much into Abada this match. But yeah, and I think with Zaha too, I think there's a lot of players that look up to him and respect him, and I think that's where I was a little bit nervous, kind of having him in, where it's more like, are these guys going to be annoyed that he takes so much like attention and like his game is somewhere else? But, you know, like when I see Tokolomati score and celebrate sometimes with him, Pep Biel, some of these guys, even Harry Toffee grabbed them and pulled them up. Like, I'm like, okay, like this guy has commanded respect in that locker room, right? And so he's showing it on the field as well. And he didn't get a yellow card.
Yeah.
You know? So that was very key.
He has like 7 more to go to not get suspended.
Yeah. Listen, we'll go game by game, right? And so, awesome. And I also want to talk a little bit about Archie Goodwin, the young Australian striker. Justin, he comes in, 2 goals. You know, how good is it, I guess, at least tracking Archie Goodwin these last couple of months? One of the things I can tell is that he's a hard worker. He's going to fight. He's going to come in and try to do something different. And it was good seeing him kind of open up his scoring at the bank as well.
Yeah, definitely. And he adds that he carries himself, and the way he explodes on the field, he just has a fluid speed that, you know, kind of like Abada does, and just like they run so effortlessly, and they can cover so much ground without looking like they're even trying. And for him to be able to get a couple goals, now you've got a dangerous weapon off the bench who has confidence.
Yeah.
And that's huge in terms of, you know, you never know when little knickknacks or injuries come about, or just when you need a game changer and to throw him out there. So, I mean, it's huge for our depth. In particular, I think we had talked about at the beginning of the season, that was one of our concerns. So having a depth piece at the number 9 or at a striker position is huge.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a guy like Archie Goodwin, now that he has goals, like I'm like, okay, like I'm expecting a little bit more, right? Because I want Tokolomati to have a little bit of pressure, right? Where he's like, okay, this guy's coming off the bench and scoring goals. I got to make sure that I continue to score goals because we need that in the team. Brian, talk to me about Archie.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was what my main point I was going to bring up was the competition. Because going into this game, I felt like Tokolomati kind of had a slow start to the season. He had that first goal, but it was like I didn't feel like the performances were quite there. And Dean had even mentioned that as well. So like, but nobody else was really making a claim for any extra minutes off the bench. And so if the longer that goes, that becomes a serious problem. So to have Tokolomati get a goal, get his momentum and kind of his mojo back, but then also have another guy off the bench who can, you know, push him a little bit, I think is going to be key. It comes down to also, can he do it in a tighter scenario, in a little bit more of a pressure situation? By the time he comes on, it's also 4-0. Important to get the goals. At the end of the day, momentum, no matter how you get it, is key. But at the same time, now, how does this depth, because I think there was a lot of conversations from Dean also about how much depth we have, but it's like a lot of that production from the depth came up 4-0. I want to see how they do when it's 1-1. 0-0 when it's been tighter, because I don't think we've quite seen the depth come through in those moments enough yet.
And also, listen, the opposition in every match that we've played at home has gotten a red card.
Yeah.
You know, 2 on the field. Toronto also got a red card.
Yeah, that's true. I was wondering where the red card was you were coming from for that one.
Yeah,
That's right.
and so like they've been playing with a man down
or a coach down.
or a coach down every game. So I gotta imagine that affects it somehow as well,
100%.
right? So I want to see Charlotte FC 90 minutes against 11 men and see what happens, right? So, but to be fair, even before that, you know,
They were solid.
they were solid. I was thinking we should have ended that first half 2-0, 3-0 up, you know, and so. But I think one of the things Tim Ream touched on it, like they needed to be a little bit more front-footed, you know, a little quicker on the ball, and I think that's what we need to see more of. And for us, again, it's going to be that consistency factor, you know. So, anyone else that you guys saw that you want to give a special shout out to this game? I mean, obviously, like I knew one person that this was their first game at a Charlotte FC game, so I was like, oh, this is perfect for you. 6 goals, you know, like
a record.
Yeah, this doesn't happen often. So, you know, like those are the type of games you want newbies or your friends to go to, that they're like, yo, 6 goals. Okay, like Charlotte must be like one of the best teams in the league. You know?
Well, right now they're in 4th, so they've moved up after after this one.
Absolutely. Anyone that sticks out to you?
I mean, I would say Tim Ream over the last couple weeks has
Yeah.
actually. I've appreciated his performances and kind of the growth he's taken over after the first couple games on the road, and he's even kind of mentioned it that in that last presser that he wasn't really fully fit going into the season, didn't get a chance to play a 90-minute preseason game, and it seemed like he was a little bit behind just fitness-wise from his preseason injury, and you're seeing less of an issue there. I think you are seeing less of an issue there. I think a lot of people highlighted lack of fitness, can't even make the U.S. men's national team roster. Like, that was kind of how the national pundits were kind of treating him after those first couple of weeks. We're not seeing that same issue. Obviously, I think overall the team structurally is protecting that a lot more than it was, but at the same time, I think also he just seems a lot more game.
Absolutely.
And kind of piggyback on Brian's comment, I think Morrison Ajimong has stepped in a difficult situation where the defense has been porous, and he's come in and they haven't been giving up goals with him back there. And his athleticism is a great compliment to Tim Ream.
Yes.
Because he is like a physical specimen, and Tim Ream is just an old veteran back there doing the smart plays. And that's, kind of what we've been relying on with Malanda and Ream last year. So it's nice to see him come in a difficult position and lock down the defense. And like Brian said, there's other adjustments to try and help not give up so many goals and so many easy opportunities, but they've come in and they've done he's come in and done a great job.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This was a good comment too. Schnegg, he really came in, and I mean, he provided to Archie for his goal, and so I think that's good. Like, having that competition as well. Toph obviously had a good game, but then having somebody come in and provide an assist has to keep him on his toes. Like, okay, like, I need to make sure I continue to play at the top level because this guy's right behind me. He's coming in and providing assists. So the more we can have competition in certain positions in the field, the better I think it is for Charlotte FC in general.
And another attacking option, too. I think actually Schnegg has maybe a little bit more going forward, but I think Toffolo's a little bit more two-way.
Yep.
And so just having a player, while they both like to get forward, having one that's kind of changes up the style a little bit, I think is important, just because I think that's what we saw less of last year, was just down the stretch. How does Dean actually change a game? How can he bring on players that actually just change the way they play or the style or anything? I just don't feel like they had anything besides one option or one direction to go. Now, with a few of these guys, you can kind of change up the way you play.
Absolutely. I do want to talk about the point return at home, right? We obviously talked about how important home matches are, and having so many, you got to pick up a good amount of points.
Yep.
Justin, 7 out of 9 points. What do you make of that? Is that really good? Does it feel like we dropped 2 points and it should be 9 out of 9? What do you grade it so far?
Well, I think it's a solid B.
Yeah.
B plus. I mean, the Miami game was disappointing.
Yeah.
And you've got an opportunity there where they're playing some young guys. It didn't really look like we had much control of that game, and that we didn't really create any opportunities. And that's frustrating to watch, because that can't continue. I mean, you play that Miami team again later in the season on the road, or even if you got back home and you got Messi on the field, it's just a different ball game, and you would imagine they're not going to be competing in that scenario if the same team comes out there. And that's disappointing, but it's early on in the season. You kind of satisfied with 7.
Yeah, and given the nature to that, like, okay, you're in 4th right now, so you're at least picking up good points that are putting you in a decent position in the table as well.
Yeah.
Brian?
Yeah, I think B or B plus. I think there's still definitely room for improvement, but at the same time, I think they used home field to kind of stop the bleeding in multiple situations already. Austin FC, after 2, especially that rough road loss against LA Galaxy, come home,
good point.
count on home, get a result, get a win, get back on track. Miami, drop a couple points, whether you feel like they should have gotten all 3 or not. At the end of the day, it's still getting shut out at home. Stop and then come out with 6 goals the next week. So I think using home field to your advantage in that way of just actually like being able to count on it. So if things don't go well, being able to revert back to that, like, hey, you know what? We got 3 points here, and we can keep doing that. So as long as that continues, they should be set.
Yeah, and you're setting kind of a standard across MLS now, where people are looking like, dang, okay, anytime we play Charlotte at home, we know it's going to be difficult. Like I want every team to come here feeling like they're at a disadvantage, you
Yes.
know. And so that's the one thing I didn't like about that Miami game, where it's like, okay, like they were able to pull a point with not a great squad.
Yeah.
If Messi and more key players were playing that game, I'm like, okay, fair, a point against Miami, but it was the nature of how it happened,
100%.
right? And so, yeah, for me too, I would give it a B. 7 out of 9 points. You know, we're within that top 4 range. We are in top 4, and so they just need to add more in these next 2 home games as well to start giving them a little bit of a cushion. Because in some tough games, they're going to come, and they're going to come pretty fast.
Yeah.
You know, and so I would also, another thing that I would say that I'm not truly happy about is we're still continuing to concede.
Yeah.
You know, and so out of these games, we've only had that one clean sheet, that 0-0 against Inter Miami, right? But they got a goal that was scored on them against New York Red Bulls, right? And also against Austin, who were with 10 men, right? And so I don't think it's too much of a concern, but it's something to point out, you know? And so, like, hey, can we get a little tighter in the back? And I'd imagine the more chemistry this back line gets, the better it will be. And I'm also curious to see how Henry Kessler gets into the mix now, you know. And so on the bright side, in these, we found we found Morrison. My bad, I didn't mean to say the A word. But we found Morrison Ajiman. So overall, I would say a B is what I would give it.
I would say the 2 goals they gave up were both, I think they're avoidable in the long term because they were gaffes. Like, right? It was Morrison's own goal, and then Kalina, I don't know if you remember from that, but he, like, bobbled. It was like,
He
bobbled
just kind of
it,
fell
and then
down with it.
It kind of fell to Hall. So these are, I mean, obviously can't be a trend, but based on how Kalina's form has been so far this year, I feel like this might be the best start I think I've seen from him. As long as that's just a one-off gaff, I think we should be okay at home. I think,
and also the context of the game, right? They were up 5-0 by that point. Yeah, I think it was 5-0, and then it was 5-1, and so like, you know, maybe they kind of had
Switch
let
off.
a little bit, and so, and they knew they weren't come 10 men. You're up 5-0, so But yeah, I guess you just got to still be a little cleaner on
100%.
those. Okay. Talk to me a little bit about the attendance this weekend. 27,000 fans at Bank of America. We talked a little bit about, you know, the goal should be striving to hit that 30,000. And, you know, first game at home, you know it's going to be a sellout, you know. And with the upper bowl closed, you know, 35,000. Next game, the Messi game, Messi this, he didn't even show up, right? But you expected to have a really good crowd. This game, we talked a little bit about, it would kind of give us an idea of where it is in terms of how many people are attending, right? What do you make of the number 27K?
I mean, it's definitely lower than you want. I think we kind of talked going into the season that with the lower bowl closed, or the upper bowl closed, still want to see them average 30K throughout the course of the year. I think that's really the target number.
Yeah.
Obviously still doing that with the 2 opening games, but how does the rest of the season kind of shake out? And obviously right now, I think that's so far below the standard of what you're kind of hoping for and aiming for the season. It's one game. I mean, I expected it definitely to probably be at 30K at the most. Like, if it was over 30K, I think I would have been a little bit surprised based on vibes and just kind of the direction of things. But 27, you don't want it to be at that level for too long. You know, because I mean that's the whole selling point of the lower bowl being, you know, the focal point, bringing that energy week after week, and all the vibes and the Premier League type atmosphere that Zoran and Dean have talked about. Those kind of things that requires the numbers and that requires that lower bowl to be packed. And so, I think moving forward, I mean results will decide it in the end, right? I mean the reason Cincinnati apparently has charges fans like $200 to be on for season tickets is because they've been winning a lot.
Right.
So if you win, the fans, I think, inevitably will also follow. So I think that's really what it comes down to. If they keep their home form strong, don't completely collapse on the road, right? No more of those 3-0 Galaxy road games. Get some points in those key road games to bring momentum back to the bank, not having to regather that momentum, but coming back into, you know, the bank up on an upswing with some more momentum. I think those are kind of the key moments for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how much does the lower bowl hold? 31?
35 about.
35?
I
Yeah,
would
or
say.
actually, I think it might even be closer to 38. But
Oh, really? Okay.
it's the seats. I think it's closer to 32, 32.5 or something.
Okay,
like that. But
yeah,
it's like,
because
if
with
you
the
include club
suites,
and everything,
yeah.
it's a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I will point out that 27 was what, fourth in the MLS?
No,
Yeah, yeah. We
Weekend.
were like one number behind Nashville. It was
Yeah.
like one.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, and we had a Hornets. There was a Hornets home game.
Yeah.
Good
and the
point.
Hornets are
Doing
are
well.
on fire.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're a fun team to watch. So,
Yeah.
you know, you're talking about competition there. So 27, when you got St. Louis isn't really the same type of market. They don't have. I don't believe they have an NBA or an NFL team. So there's less for them to cheer for. We've got an NFL and an NBA team, and now the hottest team in the NBA right now are
Yeah.
the Hornets. So
It's a good point too.
you know that's something that plays into the attendance.
The weather was nice too. I don't know, like, some people may like want to do something else. And I also think like it's the third home game,
Yeah.
like back to back to back. So I like that's not really common, you
Yeah.
know. I would say, and so
Coming off a Messi game too, or
Where it
a
was-
Messi game.
yeah, where there was like it was 0-0 too, so it wasn't
Yeah.
like an exciting match. That
Yeah.
you're like, yo, I want to come back next weekend.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I think I knew there would be a dip this game, and I think 27,000. If they could get closer to that 30 mark,
Yeah.
and like you said, again, like the results solve everything. And also, I'm not sure how they're structuring the $26 tickets, right? And so I'm curious to see how how that's going. Apparently, it's going well, but
Yeah.
whatever the strategy is, like it needs to be to get these guys at least 30,000 people at those matches, and
Yep.
so because it is a really, really good vibe. And then to Justin's point, 27,000,
It's a solid number.
yeah, it's still a really solid number.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
awesome. All right, next topic. I do a little bit on Crown Legacy, and so
Yeah.
they have been cooking fourth straight win. 3-0. It feels like Nimfasha and Aloko just like run that team as well. And so they're exciting. It's giving vintage first Crown Legacy
Yeah.
season, with Patrick Ajiman and all these guys running at Academy Kids, and so
Yep.
be scared, So talk to us a little bit about Crown Legacy, Brian.
Yeah, well, I mean, Aloko and Nimfash have both now scored in 4 consecutive games. The team as a whole has scored 17 through 4, so they're they're averaging like over 4 goals a game, and they're leading MLS Next Pro in goal differential, points. I mean, they're absolutely dominating right now. Aloko looks like a bit of a man amongst boys, similar, like you said, to Ajiman when he was first down there. It just seems like the level is like well below where he's at.
I mean, the guy played it in AFCON 2 months ago.
100%. And I think
Or a
what
couple
happens
months
is
ago now.
what you see with MLS Next Pro, and I think this is just something that development league's going to have to work out, is like how to maintain a little bit more balance just in terms of competition.
Yeah.
Some teams are just throwing out 16-year-old kids, and other teams are actually putting out like a lot of investment.
$5 million players.
Exactly, right? And so, and that are also, I mean, it's one thing to get a $5 million player who's 16, who isn't developed into a full-grown man, and then there's a
Yeah.
Loco who he's a full-grown man,
Yeah.
and he's kind of bodying these kids around a little bit. That's what Ajiman used to do too. He
Yeah.
would just kind of like, he was just literally just bigger than everybody. And so I think that also just plays a role where it's just, I don't know how much more you can learn from him being at that level.
Yeah, absolutely. Justin, when you see that, and sometimes, obviously, this game, you kind of brush it off because they score 6 goals. But, I'd imagine that you get more pressure as a Liel Labata, as a Vargas, as these guys, when you keep hearing that, these guys at Crown Legacy are scoring and assisting, right? Because they're right there on the cusp of Dean Smith saying, well, let me bring a Loco up and see what he can do.
Yeah, I think that does contribute a little bit, but I don't know that Abada, how much they pay attention to a lower team. I would love to see those guys competing with them on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And I was looking over the roster here. I don't know that there's a lot of spots where you could bring them up, and that's the concern. Is Aloko Berchimus should be, I think, on the main roster. I think they should be getting those 20-minute runs instead of maybe Tiger Smalls or something like that, and just get them in there, because I don't see a future where Abada is on this roster long term, and start getting his replacement in order, start getting your affairs in order, because if he continues his finishing quality here, and I don't want to bash on him, but if you can't finish and you're a DP, you can't be in the league.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just cutthroat business.
Yeah, 100%.
You have to be able to finish, and that's not going to be ignored, I can't imagine, in this transfer window, this upcoming one in the summer. So, that would be.
Yeah. Now the good thing too is, Dean's mentioned it. They bring these guys up and they train with them 2 or 3 times during the week as well. So I'd imagine he's seeing their day to day. He's seeing how they're being incorporated into the first team. And for me, it's more like, okay, Dean, when are you going to actually give them an opportunity?
Yeah.
That's where we're all kind of like, obviously after this last match.
Impossible.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if you continue to have those 0-0s like Miami, where it's blatantly obvious you need something different, then that pressure or that, noise is just going to get louder.
Yeah, I think, and actually I think, shout out to our guy Aaron, but I think me and him kind of talked a little bit about this, because he's definitely interested in seeing Nimfasha, especially I think on the first team. And I think for me, it comes down to the way they have approached this entire season. Cohesion and continuity, mentioned in every single episode.
That's all we're going to say every game.
But when Dean discusses that, and you see kind of, you're basing that off of how you're going to get results. And so bringing up other guys to replace those minutes, you essentially start rocking the boat, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you're going to do that and go that direction, the points and the results have to not be there to the point where it requires you to disrupt things and kind of rock the boat a little bit. And so obviously the 6-1 result is one reason not to, but I think you just need to see more than 1 0-0 draw at home. If they start losing points, a lot of points at home, or continue to not be able to get points on the road, I think that's when you kind of maybe start to mix things up a bit.
Yeah.
But if you're like steadily getting points and kind of on track and still pacing for where you need to be both in the table, it's hard to disrupt. As much as I would say you're also not learning much from a local being down there, you want him to get reps.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's better to have him get reps than not get reps at all.
Yeah.
And so you got to kind of balance those two things out.
And
I think it's just long term, he can't be at next pro. He has to be somewhere better.
And I think perception is also like kind of important right now to people like you look at him against Inter Miami, he had the opportunity, wasted it.
Yep.
Even this weekend, like everybody scored up front except him.
Yeah.
Like not to put him down, but like, it's like, hey, like you're not part of that squad right now. And I'd imagine he kind of feels that, because he had 5 or 6 shots too that he took trying to get that goal. And so if he has another one of those kind of clear moments where the game's 0-0 and the ball lands to him and he has an opportunity and he doesn't put it away, then that pressure continues to add on to a DP like him, because now it's year 3. The expectations are even like higher now for you to do something to kind of show why you're a DP. That had to happen season 2, but now it's more of a pressure thing.
And it's being able to kind of take that on when you're against the run of play a little bit. Like Miami, they were against the run of play. He has his 1v1, doesn't really take advantage. It stays 0-0. Miami keeps gaining control. In this last week, I think New York actually kind of, through the first 10 minutes, had a little bit more opportunity and had a dangerous moment where the ball crosses right across the face of goal. But then Tokolmadi, a bit against the run of play. Vargas draws the foul. Biel hits it to Tokolmadi, and he gets the finish. Now it's 1-0. Now changes the complete complexion of the game. And so I think those are kind of the moments when you're against run of play, can you have a guy who can just take advantage of those situations regularly?
Absolutely, absolutely. Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about, since we're going to international break, 5 games, Justin, 2 wins, 2 draws, and 1 loss. What do you make? What are your positives so far from Charlotte FC?
Well, we're in 4th. And we haven't really played our best football. So I think there's nothing to be really that upset about. As a positive, we've had slow starts. You're really just trying to have the lull in the season like we did last year. And like I said, maybe that international break, the World Cup break, all those things maybe play in our favor with integral players like Westwood needing that extra rest. Although Tim Ream probably won't get that if he's on the U.S. roster.
Yeah.
Although who knows how far we'll get in that in that dynamic anyway.
Well, I think Zorn made a joke. What did he say if he makes it to the final? What did he say?
He said he would let him take a month off.
Yeah. He's like, listen, if
for
USA
him to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So if Tim Ream hasn't heard that yet.
Yeah. Now you got it. 1 month off, make that World Cup final.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brian, you're positive so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can still bank on home field, right? I think that's a huge part of it. You can still bank on the points at the bank. I think you still got to figure out some of these road issues. I think the little defensive lulls, whether it was the 15 minutes against LA Galaxy, Morrison's own goal, Kalina's kind of gaff in this last game, kind of fixing those defensive lulls.
I asked you for positives, and
Oh,
you
sorry.
straight went
I went
negative.
Well,
This
I started
guy
with
sees
home
the-
field positive.
and then you just
yeah, you're right. All right. I'll turn it back around to, but I think also figuring out who they are. Zaha mentioned this. They kind
They're
of
Charlotte FC, dude. What do you mean?
first
I'm kidding.
through the first couple games, Zaha mentioned that they were kind of testing some stuff out. It wasn't quite working. Kind of simplifying things, getting back to kind of the basics of who they know, who they are, and doing that and executing on those things.
Yeah.
I think there still needs to be an evolution.
Yeah.
But still kind of having a baseline. One other positive, obviously, we have to touch on is the set pieces.
Yep.
The set piece is a huge one.
How many goals now do you know?
4.
4.
And they
off
had
of set.
5 all of 2024 off of set pieces and free kicks. And then they had 8 last year. So they're well outpacing both the last 2 seasons. And so I think that's probably should be – I think that's the biggest positive we've seen so far in terms of just change of having a whole new dynamic in which they can score, which we just historically haven't been able to see Charlotte do that.
Yeah.
It's weird that we haven't, especially watching Zaha last year, that Dean didn't get on this earlier, because Zaha is the most fouled player in MLS.
Yeah.
We're going to have a lot of free kicks.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
We should be coming up with strategies. I mean, it's about time we're coming up with unique opportunities and practicing things to get us goals.
Yeah.
Force teams under pressure with Zaha. If you want to foul him, fine. Go ahead. Keep fouling him.
Yeah.
And we're going to take advantage, and we're going to change the game that way and use Zaha not just for his creativity, but use him for his ability to draw fouls.
Yeah. I would say one positive for me is seeing Pep Biel kind of pick up right where he left off a little bit. I still don't think we've seen the best Pep Biel, but 4 goals in 5 games, a phenomenal return.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I was afraid of was, he gets that mark as an official DP, here for the long run and kind of disappears. And he hasn't, he's scored some great goals. I mean, this last one was phenomenal, right? And so I think him playing well, also he loves being in Charlotte. He's comfortable here. That adds up really, really well. And I like that. I want to see our DP scoring goals and getting assists. And we've seen a brilliant start by Pep Biel, and I think Zaha's getting there as well. And so since you were so adamant about talking about the areas of improvement, talk to me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I already touched on the defensive structure and gaffes a little bit, just kind of cleaning up those moments. I think also just starting a little bit faster, especially at home. I think that's one area. They didn't start very fast against Miami. They didn't start very fast either, I feel like, against New York. It was more even, and they got the goal faster. So I think that's a key part of it. But still, I feel like I would like to see them really take the reins on the game right out of the gate, especially at home. Don't expect them to quite as much maybe on the road, but at home I'd really like to see them come right out of the gate firing. Like they did sort of in the second half.
Yeah.
When they had a great passing sequence that led to the goal. Maybe the goal was a gaffe by Valencia a bit, but at the same time, it's still like they set that all up with a good sequence of play. So can they do that quicker out of the gate?
Absolutely. Justin, any area of improvement that you want to see?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think just continuously working on that transition from the central defensive midfielders, Westwood, Diani, or Bronico, transitioning that into offense and bringing that forward.
Yeah.
I think that was one of our concerns, and we still haven't really seen it fully addressed, where they're coming forward and creating more opportunities.
Yeah.
I think we've gotten some luck in red cards and games getting out of control where maybe the other team's taking their foot off the gas. that's created some of this. But, ultimately we're going to have to be able to create multiple ways of scoring goals. And we need those guys to be able to create. I think De La Torre had created one goal earlier. I can't remember which game it was.
Against
that
Austin.
was against Austin. And
Yeah.
that was a positive, in terms of his creativity. And I think that's what he adds there, which was positive to see. But that's really the trouble area right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I would. The only other thing I would add is to the De La Torre pieces. Like, I want to see him be a little bit more key.
Yeah.
And so I think that if he can be a little bit more of a key player for Charlotte FC, we see that progression. I mean, that's why he was bought. That's why he's in his prime. They signed him to I think it was a 3-year three-year deal, right? And so his best years he needs to give to us, and we need to see that. Obviously I'm giving him the time that he requires, and we saw a little bit against Austin, that phenomenal pass he had for, I think it was Biel's goal.
Yep.
And so I think the progression and the evolution for Charlotte FC, a part of that's going to come from seeing a better Luca De La Torre. So I'm hopeful for that. Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about the 2027 Sprint MLS season. And so it's going to be a very interesting time next year with, this quick MLS season as we transition to a more European-based calendar. And so 14 regular season games, Brian, 7 home, 7 away, right, against conference opponents.
Yep.
It's going to run from February till May.
Yeah. So the season will be February to April, and then playoffs will be
in May. Yeah. So talk to me about this sprint in 2027. What do you make of it? It's going to be an interesting season, right? It kind of reminds me a little bit about the COVID season.
Yeah, kind of like that. Sort of like the MLS is back. Very fast pace. I mean, they're playing essentially the majority of their season in March. So you're expecting at least half of those games to be in March once the schedule comes out, because it's like half of February and then most of April. No weeks off. It's going to be quick, start to finish. I think also the interesting other thing is, I mean, there's going to be less separation between the top and the bottom. Decision day could get kind of crazy, because there's just not enough time for the good teams to separate from the bad for that year.
Yeah.
It also means you can recover pretty quickly. So if you have a run of a couple bad games, you're going to be able to get right back into the swing of things if you can. But also at the same time, you could fall quite far out of it after just a couple bad results. So I think in either direction, it could be kind of chaotic because of that. Also, you can't really, I think maybe there's an expectation that some teams would just kind of use it as a rebuilding tool, where you can kind of use this 14 games to kind of warm transfer window into the next full season. But you're qualifying for Leagues Cup 2028, CCC 2028. So all those opportunities to really push that needle still exist in a 14-game sprint season. So I think it's going to be really fun. It's only going to be against opponents that everybody's familiar with, right? All conference opponents. So I think it's going to be an exciting time. I think it's every week's going to be wild, because you can move up or down the table significantly pretty much the entire season.
It's going to be hard to really assess it, right?
No, yeah.
Justin, should you get a slightly smaller trophy if you win it that year, since it's shorter?
I think maybe get a bigger one.
Side note, have you seen those Sunday League trophies that are like humongous for no reason?
Well, I coach my kids in rec basketball, and I was in the championship game last year. My 8-year-old son, and the championship trophy, we lost. We only got the runner-up trophy. The championship trophy was like bigger than the kid, and each kid got one too.
What?
And I was like, "What is going on?" I was like, "That thing's going on the mantle." And I was like, and we're in a league where it's not even really a team. There's like one kid who's scoring all the points. I was like, so But with this schedule, it'll be very interesting to see how, like Brian said, kind of how teams approach it.
Yeah.
Because you could easily see Charlotte use that as a transition. If Zaha's out of contract, maybe Westwood. I don't know. What are you doing? You trying to bring in the new guys, get them acclimated, give them some run, and then use it and see how it goes. Because you either have to, especially if you start out 0-2. I mean, like it's like tanking.
Season's done.
In the NBA, it's like season's done. No recovering from 0 points in 3 games. We better bring in the young kids and let them do things. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. I mean, I think these are perfect opportunities to go for it.
Yeah.
I don't want to see any tanking, none of that. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, obviously the tricky part is that one of the things that Zoran and Dean and all these guys keep preaching is that we need these summer windows to align, right? And so I think having this short sprint before, if you can get a trophy or qualify for a Champions League Cup, you might as well go for it. You might as well do it, right? Because there's never going to be another time like this, when you just have to be hot at the right moment, right? Yep. And so, but that's going to be the hard part, getting hot really, really fast.
Yep.
And so maybe we could do, 7 home games to start off the season and do 7 away or something.
Yeah. Well, Montreal might already have to do that because they start every year 6 games on the road usually. So I don't know how they're going to mix up their schedule. But I do think, like you talked about, because of how Charlotte's roster is already kind of built and established, it's not to start the 2027 season. I don't think there's going to be a ton of turnover, especially if we're seeing how Westwood's playing. I'd imagine his option gets picked up. Some of these guys, other guys as well. I think that sprint season is an opportunity, like you said, for Charlotte to really push for it because other teams won't be in that spot. There are going to be some rebuilding rosters that most likely won't start as hot just because you're trying to get new pieces in place and all those things. And so, theoretically, that should mean Charlotte should be in a more of a prime seat to be able to push for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it also, you got to look at it as an opportunity to qualify for those extra events that then becomes a selling point in the summer. Like, hey, we're qualified for this.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Everyone wants more games, more attention, and more competition. So you can sell to the players, hey, listen, we're in the Champions League. We're in this.
I'm curious to see what kind of changes they make to the rosters too. Like, I want to see more. That has to continue to get pushed.
You're talking about the roster rules?
Yes.
Yeah. They have a CBA agreement negotiation. That's after the 2027 season, so I don't know if it'll be done by then.
Yeah. All right, one last thing we'll touch on is the international break, right? Brings international games, right? And so there's still a couple of, I think one of the most exciting things for me is kind of seeing those last couple of teams that will qualify for the World Cup, which is kind of insane that, this is clearly a FIFA, let's make some more money kind of deal, right? Where there's still teams to go to qualify, right? I think in our kind of areas, Jamaica, Bolivia, who's a South American team, Suriname, Iraq, Congo, they're playing for I believe it's 2 more spots. And in Europe is something similar.
Yeah, Turkey has a spot up for grabs. I think Denmark is playing for one as well.
Yeah, and so it'll be interesting to see how that lays out. The U.S. men's national team plays pretty close in Atlanta, so I'll be down there for those games. But what are you looking forward to this international window, or do you not like the international windows, Justin?
No, I love seeing the U.S. men's national team play. That's kind of where I grew up getting into the game, was the U.S. men's national team. So, I always want to watch those games, even if they're meaningless, even if it's their C squad. I just like to see guys playing for their country because I feel like they just play a little harder than they do for most of them. It's especially in a World Cup year. Now we're trying to see who's going to fit in the U.S. situation, who's going to be a difference maker we can bring off the bench.
Our boy Patrick has gotten some.
I think he's a handful, and he's been scoring. So I would love to see him make the squad. I think
he's right there.
There's
he's definitely fighting for it. I mean, to be in this last call before the actual World Cup is a really good sign.
This is the tryouts, essentially.
Yeah.
This is it.
Absolutely, Brian.
Yeah, I was just kind of continue my thought of the tryouts. This is Pochettino said essentially the May friendlies, the roster will already be decided. So this is the last opportunity for players to make a stand and say, like, hey, you need to include me on that 23 or 26-man roster. These games aren't going to be like friendlies. They'll be competitive. Belgium and Portugal also need to show, like, they need to make an impact for themselves as well. I think, everybody's trying to build momentum going into the World Cup. So I don't think any of the friendly matches this window are going to be very friendly. Everybody's going to be pushing close to what their best 11 is. Maybe obviously they kind of play around with some different tactics and stuff to kind of adjust to things, and kind of get more data on different scenarios going into the World Cup. But at the same time, I mean, it's do or die for a lot of players, especially if you're on the fringe of making the roster. This is your last hurrah to be a part of this team. And so I think from a U.S. men's national team standpoint, that's really exciting to see a lot of these guys compete like that.
Yeah, I think along those lines is the competition at striker.
Yeah.
For the U.S. I mean, you can remember, when have we ever had this kind of competition?
Yeah.
I mean, we've got Ajimong, Pepe, Josh Sargent,
Balogun.
Balogun. I mean,
Competition's gotten so good. That Josh Sargent's out now.
Yeah, I mean, we've got guys who we used to be like, well, are we no Altidore? We have no one else. He's not in form, but what else are we going to do?
Yeah.
Now these guys have to be in form. It's exciting to see that kind of offensive weaponry.
Good competition.
Good competition there.
And in Europe too, even some MLS guys are getting a shout. Tim Ream, so shout out to him. A Charlotte FC player, and so he's in there. The experience as well, and so hopefully he has a good game because he's the U.S. men's national team accounts. They come for him really fast when the team is not doing well. So hopefully he does well these last two matches as well, and so. Hopefully, we also start feeling a little bit more of that World Cup fervor. I still haven't felt it yet. Maybe when we get closer, we feel a little bit more. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, maybe this war could end. That would help a lot of things.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe take people's mind off things like, well, horrible global economic crisis. Maybe I can't go to these games anymore.
That's a great point too.
So yeah.
Awesome. With that said, Brian, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on X at Bam Mauer Media, written content at topin90.com.
Mr. Justin?
Well, I'm at Olsinski Law Firm. You can find us on Instagram, jcolaw.com. If you need any legal help, we'd be glad to help you out. And that's it.
Awesome. And I'm Jorge Gonzalez. We're Top Bin 90 on all our socials. Episode 55 over and out. Yay.